Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are trying to move on from their public feud. Warren, in fact, told reporters that she had no further comment on the tense post-debate exchange between her and Sanders caught on a hot mic Wednesday. Sanders also refused to answer reporters' questions about the clash between the two progressive candidates. Meanwhile, Politico obtained a set of new talking points circulated by Sanders' campaign, which reads, quote, "Please refrain from commenting on the CNN story on the meeting between Bernie and Senator Elizabeth Warren," adding, "Goal, take the high road." Both candidates left the campaign trail and returned to Capitol Hill yesterday to be sworn in for the Senate impeachment trial.
That's a pivotal moment for the Warren campaign. That's where she was going after Bernie Sanders right after the debate there. I think she played the sexist card. That's my interpretation of what that interchange amounted to.
She knew what she was doing there. She knew the mic was on. The cameras are still going. And she wanted to make a point of either making him a misogynist. That's where the sexist card is played in it. He's a misogynist because he calls her a liar. And yet, look at her history. She has a history of, when it comes to her ethnic background, at Harvard, she said she never used that for anything else. She used it on her bar application in Texas. She effectively, people say, she lied about getting fired because she was pregnant. Those kinds of things, using the aspect of being a woman to try to either get sympathy or to move ahead when we have to move ahead based on our ideas and our policy.
And it's not working. It is not. She has played the gender card. I think that's a better expression to use.
That is correct, yes.
She's not been entirely truthful about some things in
That's
her.
right.
And this identity politics, it's not working because she is single.
It's not working for her. It certainly didn't work for Hillary, and yet they're presuming that the American people can be manipulated in this way. I think Kamala Harris thought it would work for her because just because you're a woman. We've moved far enough ahead now to where we are competing in the political arena, in the business arena, but we must deliver, and people expect us to deliver on good work, deliver on good policy, deliver on good management, as opposed to presuming that there should be a different standard because we're women. And this approach for high-profile political women says that you should try to just get people to accept you because of your gender, when the feminist movement was, in fact, trying to break us away from expectations and gender stereotypes. And now we're falling back into that trap. And it's not going to work.
You can't bring something up. You can't bring something up and then turn to that person and say, well, I don't want to talk about it anymore. That's just like the worst type of...
It's so annoying.
That's like, I can't, we're not going to talk about what you just said about me? No, I'm done discussing it.
You did this and we're done. Like, well, wait, that's not.
Yeah,
no, I don't think I didn't do that.
That's not how it works. And Michael Moore, I listened to his podcast this morning and he talked about this. He dropped it this morning. He said, why don't you want to talk about it anymore? If Bernie has this idea that a woman can't be president, why don't you call him out for it? And we'll all help you. We'll all back. We got to get rid of this stupid idea that a woman can't be president. And if it's inside the party, we got to get rid of it. Why wouldn't you call it out? Why would you stop talking about it? Because it's not true. That's why. And everyone knows it.
These are all the lies that Elizabeth Warren has told. Saying she opposed fancy wine fundraisers, even though she held them herself, raising money using exactly the methods she now denounces as corrupting, and falsely claiming her presidential campaign was 100% grassroots funded when it carried over millions from a Senate campaign funded by the wealthy, claiming her father was a janitor when her brother insists he wasn't, pretending to have been representing the interests of consumers when she was in fact working for corporations who were contesting the legal claims of retired coal miners, women sickened by faulty breast implants, rural cooperatives, and dead NASCAR drivers. The New York Times and the Washington Post both investigated her claims and documented ways in which her campaign had manipulated the truth, claiming for years on government forms that her race was American Indian. When a mother accused her of having sent her children to private schools, insisting her children, quote, went to public schools when one of them actually did go to private school. Claiming to support Medicare for all, but then, when criticized for it, backing off it completely and promising to pass something else. Claiming that only billionaires would pay more under her Medicare for all plan when that wasn't true. Allowing Harvard Law School to claim her as its first woman of color. Claiming that a DNA test supported the contention that she was an American Indian, then deleting the evidence she had done this. Claiming to have been the first nursing mother to take the New Jersey bar, then when asked for evidence, saying that she, quote, was making a point about the very serious challenges she faced. telling a dubious story about her grandparents having to elope because of discrimination, saying she was not political in her younger years when she was, in fact, a die-hard conservative Republican, claiming recipes she copied word for word from the New York Times were ancient Cherokee family dishes, pretending that she released a health care plan that did not raise middle-class taxes, claiming to have, quote, created the intellectual foundation for Occupy Wall Street, and criticizing the revolving door between the banking sector and government despite personally putting bankers in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So that's Elizabeth Warren's record of distorting reality for political benefit.
Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders shying away from the feud that erupted Tuesday night.
Have you resolved anything there? No, we haven't spoken.
A he said, she said after Sanders denied telling her a year ago it would be tough for a woman to beat Donald Trump.
I think you called me a liar on national TV. I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion? We'll have that discussion.
Detractors say she had to know she was still wearing a mic. Warren telling us she has nothing to add. With both vying for many of the same liberal voters, social media lit up, with some Sanders supporters using offensive hashtags like Warren is a snake, accusing Warren of leaking the alleged conversation as she was slipping and he was rising in the polls. Other Democrats say women candidates won big in the midterms and have to get over what happened in 2016.
I think Democrats have PTSD from the last election, and they're looking for a reason, an explanation for why Donald Trump won. And it's easier to say it's because a woman can't beat him than accept that America wanted Donald Trump.
6 major progressive groups are calling for a ceasefire, worrying that a civil war on the left will only help a moderate like Joe Biden win the nomination.
Look at the framing from CNN. Look at the framing. They said that Warren tried to de-escalate this issue. It was her and her team that leaked the story. Bernie Sanders is a sexist. That was the implication. And then Bernie says, no, I'm not. And she goes, I felt terrible when you said that. And then she goes on. CNN called it the most memorable line when she goes on to explain how indeed women do have the ability to win. And people are wrong when they say that women don't. But nobody said that. Nobody said women don't have the ability to win. Nobody said that. Bernie vehemently denied that he said that. But CNN is framing it as like, well, Elizabeth Warren tried to de-escalate and be the bigger person, and Elizabeth Warren laid out the facts and had a memorable line about when she said women can win. As if there's a debate going on stage, and Bernie and like other dudes on stage are like, you know, I don't think these broads are cut out for it, Jack. Guys, let me explain something to you. This is why the media is despised. Did you know 41% of the country trust the media? That's a low number. You know what percentage has a quote, great deal of trust? 13%. You wonder why? Because nobody likes the press. Right wing, left wing, doesn't matter. Right wing, left wing, chicken wing, nobody likes them.
But here's the thing. If you look at the big picture here this week, the back and forth between Warren and Sanders, coupled with the fact that they're getting yanked off the trail for 3 weeks, I think is a very big hit to the progressive wing of the party. The fact of the matter is Bernie Sanders, his path to the nomination includes eventually an endorsement by Elizabeth Warren, and Elizabeth Warren's path to the nomination eventually includes an endorsement by Bernie Sanders, right? Eventually, they cannot win without the other. And if they get to the point where they're, well, if I can't win, neither can he or she, and if that's where their supporters get to, well, advantage who? Joseph Biden.
I assume at some point they have to speak. Or am I wrong? Do they just both just hope this goes away?
You might be wrong.
Do they have to speak? I mean, it doesn't seem like they're having any kind of beer summit anytime soon. I mean, I think this is a complicated clash. It's awkward. You have two people saying entirely different things about a private meeting several years ago. And it raises a lot of sort of thorny questions about gender and the Democratic Party that a lot of people maybe don't really want to come up right now. I think also, looking to these early contests, it raises real questions about the fact that the two of them pull from a similar pool of voters, and does this upset any of those people? When you look at Iowa, people's first and second choices matter. Often you see that they're Warren first, Bernie second, or vice versa. Does this change any of that?
This is a national poll, but to that point, it's the Quinnipiac national poll, but to that point, the numbers, I've seen Iowa numbers that are quite similar. If your first choice is Warren, 57% of those Warren voters say their second choice would be Bernie Sanders. They're both progressives. If your first choice is Sanders, more than half, 52% say their second choice is Warren. So if these two get into it, whether the issue is Medicare for all or their recollection of this meeting in which Senator Warren, sources close to her, and then she confirmed it after our MJ Lee reported this, she put it on statement saying essentially that she made a case to Bernie Sanders why I think I would be the stronger president. And she said, because part of it was that she could get broad support among the women in the electorate. And according to her team's take and her statement, Sanders responded by saying, no, I disagree. A woman can't beat Trump.
This next comment is for me. Leslie says, I'm so upset with Sam today for immediately taking Bernie Sanders' side before all the facts come out. Just because there's a clip of Bernie saying women can be president doesn't mean he couldn't have said the opposite to her. You're right, Leslie. I did not wait for all the facts to come out. But just to provide some additional context, I've been following Bernie Sanders' career for a decade. I really do appreciate how much he lives and breathes female empowerment. I also know that in 2015 that he was such an ally of Elizabeth Warren's that even though he wanted to run for president, when she said she wanted to, he said, okay, then I'm going to defer because I want to support your campaign. And that's exactly what he was going to do until she backed out and then he ran. So I think that speaks a lot about him. I don't think he would have put his presidential goals aside if he didn't believe that a woman could be president. And we saw him do the same thing after he lost against Hillary Clinton. He did everything possible to support Hillary Clinton become the next president. So I just look at his actions being proof of why I did not think that he said that to Elizabeth. Not to say that he may not have said it. I just think it could have been taken out of context. Maybe he's thought our country's too misogynistic to elect a woman. I don't know, but thank you for reminding me to pause to learn more before I form an opinion. I think that's an important note for me to take, so thank you.
There's this idea that Bernie Sanders doesn't believe a woman could win. Well, if he didn't believe that, why would he campaign on behalf of Hillary Clinton? And more importantly, why did he encourage Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016?
Wouldn't make any sense.
Look, these are important. No one was in that room. No one was in that room when Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren had that conversation. So we can't make a judgment call based on that conversation because we don't know the wording of it. We don't know the context of the discussion. We don't know any of that.
Yeah.
What we do know is who Bernie Sanders is as a person, and we know what his actions have been when it comes to this specific topic.
What did you think about CNN's story and what's going on? It's so crazy.
So I have to confess that I was internet free for almost the entire day until we did this interview, so I don't actually know the story that you're referencing. So could you fill me in and I'll let you know what I think?
Oh, yeah. So the story is that Warren is claiming that in a meeting a year ago, Sanders told her, a private one-on-one meeting, Sanders told her that he didn't think a woman could win the presidential elections.
And she only decided to reveal this explosive and incriminating statement now?
The day before a debate.
Also, the CNN story was sourced to 4 people. They had 2 people familiar with the matter, 2 people who had spoken to Warren, but the story all came from Warren. And
there were
then
2
Bernie
people
denied
in the room.
it. Just the coverage of it was great.
Yeah.
If you didn't see it, it's not important, but it's the whole campaign is kind of going crazy now. Did you anticipate this reaction, like when Bernie rose in the polls, that this kind of thing would start to happen?
He did.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say is, there have long been built-in mechanisms in both parties designed to prevent candidates who are perceived to be outside of the realm of establishment control or mainstream and orthodox thought. And they activate those mechanisms when it seems like a candidate who is outside of their control is threatening to actually win the nomination. In 2016, you saw that in the Republican Party. They did everything they possibly could to prevent Trump from winning, and he did have to overcome a lot of those institutional obstacles, and that's what made his victory so kind of extraordinary, so remarkable. And of course, Bernie, as someone who's not a Democrat technically, has been critical of the party for many years, whose opinions are adverse to the factions that fund the party. If he got anywhere near the nomination, or even polls suggesting that he could win, as polls now are suggesting, they're going to do everything, literally, to sink his candidacy, and that's obviously what this is.
But more importantly, some of the commentary from after the debate is, look at Bernie being vicious. They've even spun that interaction we showed you with the handshake as him being bad in some fashion. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. And watching those older videos, like, how can you not love him that he's standing beside Hillary Clinton when she and her supporters were vicious to him month after month after month, and he still did so much to try to get her elected, as hard as it must have been. And my heart goes out to him, even though at the time, he was being attacked even by some of his supporters. They didn't like that he was doing that, but he still did it because he was doing what he believed was right. And as soon as the election was done, he would not get one iota of credit for it for the rest of his life. And he must have known that it wasn't going to benefit him personally, but he was doing it because he thought it was best for the country.
There is no coming back for Elizabeth Warren. I mean, she is completely canceled by the majority of the Bernie community. I think pretty much all of them. I mean, they have 100% said that's it. She's done. If we weren't done with her before, how she gaslighted the whole situation made Bernie said, "Oh, you just called me a liar." He's like, "What?" He's like, "No, you." And then he knew. He was like, "You know what? This is like a gotcha moment. This is a hot mic moment. This is CNN," because CNN broke the news, if we recall. And then CNN, of course, had the audio and held on to it until they decided to. And then CNN has been involved in this entire thing. And I think this is definitely a situation where CNN worked alongside with the Elizabeth Warren campaign. That is my personal opinion, but I think there's some sort of situation there. And it's just really ridiculous how now you see Elizabeth has gone off the cliff with how far she's gone with this, and there's no going back. That's it. She's on it and she's done. She literally is getting Act Blue is getting an overflow of people wanting their money back. Bernie Sanders has made $4 million since last night.
He broke a 24-hour fundraising record, didn't he?
Yeah.
Again.
So
and I think he did it again the day before when all the stuff first broke.
Bittersweet, right? It's bitter because I genuinely feel bad for Bernie. Like, I could tell he looked upset. I feel like he wasn't expecting this. I don't think he was expecting this at all. And I think the campaign now is scrambling to find a possible VP because I know that she was somebody that a lot of those campaign consultants
top 3.
have been advising. And so now they're like, oh my God, what do we do? Well, if they're smart enough, they should know exactly what to do by now. That's all I gotta say.
So let me get this straight, Fiorella. It's a hard no on Elizabeth Warren, then, right?